Hello everyone and welcome to Professor Mike's class. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brain. The brain consists of several different parts, but let's start with the cerebrum. The cerebrum is going to be the largest part, consisting of the right and left cerebral hemispheres. And there are several lobes contained within this part, which is the frontal, occipital, temporal, and parietal lobes. The overall role of the cerebrum is to coordinate and process sensory and motor functions and to provide reasoning and emotional processing. So let's go ahead and take a look at that frontal lobe right here. We're going to start with the right inferior frontal gyrus, right middle frontal gyrus, right superior frontal gyrus. Then on top here we have the right precentral gyrus. And these guys are also bilateral, so here's all the left ones right there. Together they make up the frontal lobe, and the frontal lobe has several different responsibilities that are associated with the higher cognitive functions. For example, they can help with problem solving, motivation, mathematical equations, several different things like that. We also have the motor cortex, which is responsible for planning and coordinating voluntary movements. The last area of the frontal lobes I want to talk about is what's called Broca's area. It is imperative in the production of speech. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the occipital lobes. They're going to be right here. There's right and left. Again, these guys are bilateral, and they are responsible for the visual interpretation of the brain. They are what enables you to see. From there, we're going to go on to the temporal lobes. Alright, so the temporal lobe is made up of this guy right here. This is the posterior part of the right superior temporal gyrus. This is the anterior aspect of it. We have the right middle temporal gyrus, the right inferior temporal gyrus, and then if we look right down here, we can get the right fusiform gyrus, and also the right parahippocampal gyrus. Those guys are what make up the temporal lobes. Again, these guys are bilateral. You can see them on the left and the right. The temporal lobe is actually the second largest lobe of the brain, and the function of the temporal lobes focuses on processing auditory information, memory, and emotion. It's located on both sides of the head, near the ears. The left lobe, let's see, which is right over here, is typically the dominant lobe in most people. It's involved in understanding verbal information and language, and the right side is going to be responsible for nonverbal information. Now let's move on to the parietal lobes. Alright, the parietal lobes are right back here. We have the right superior parietal lobe, the right post-central gyrus, the right angular gyrus, right supramarginal gyrus, and those guys are what make up the parietal lobes right there. And again, these guys are bilateral, so you can see them on both sides. And this lobe is involved in various functions. It is also responsible for sensation, perception, and the interpretation of sensory information. Also cognition and spatial orientation. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the cerebellum, which is going to be back here. So this is the cerebellum. And then we have the pons. And we also have the medulla oblongata right there. So the cerebellum, which is actually Latin for little brain, is located near the brainstem, below the temporal and occipital lobes. The cerebellum is what enables you to run, walk in a straight line. Basically, any type of physical movement is what the cerebellum is going to be responsible for. Then this guy is going to connect to the spinal cord, which you can't see on here, but the spinal cord is basically like transmitter for the body. It sends electrical signals to every part and is responsible for moving the limbs and moving the torso, which is why any damage to the spine can result in paralysis. Thank you guys very much.